Hi there! So what you just saw on screen was my early attempt at coding my game, Grim Teachings. Unfortunately, just that menu and room alone took up a ridiculously long time to create, so I ended up scrapping it for this assignment and decided to create a mock-up with drawings and animations instead, which did end up saving me a lot of time and energy in the process. In this video prototype, I will be doing a step-by-step narration of what the game's initial tutorial would play out, so sit back and enjoy the video. In summary, Grim Teachings is a strategy-based point-and-click game that incites players to tap into their situational awareness and critical thinking skills. It has a fantastical narrative-heavy influence with lots of interesting characters and storylines for players to discover, as well as a strong emphasis on risk and reward systems during its functional gameplay that can ultimately affect the path that the player ends up on. As the digital prototype, I wanted to see just how all of these aspects combined will affect the flow of the game, as well as making sure that the gameplay is simple and easy to decipher. When you first start up the game, you will be launched into a scripted cutscene that will explain the core narrative of the game. The story will go as follows. The Grim Reaper, tired of doing the same old job for centuries on end with no breaks, suddenly decides that he's done with reaping and wants to settle down into retirement. However, in order for him to do so, he must take on an apprentice to continue on the cycle of death, for disrupting the cycle will affect the natural order of the universe, also known as the balance. So one day, he decides to start passively seeking out apprentices while on the job, waiting for someone who catches his eye. One day, while on a regular job, he gets spotted by two mortals in the mundane world. This is odd, as normally Reaper is invisible to mortal souls, yet these humans are watching him intently. Shocked and intrigued, Reaper decides to take them into Hades to scope out their potential as the next Grim Reapers. This is when the tutorial officially begins. The players will be taken down into Hades through Charon's ferry. Meanwhile, Reaper will explain to the player the basic rundown of their duties as the newly selected Reapers in training, such as the ranking system and the details about the balance and how it works. Once they all arrive, players will have the opportunity to explore the underworld. However, they will be first directed by the Reaper towards Tartarus, whereupon players will encounter the first scenario, Busy Street. This is where the core mechanics that were tested out in the paper prototype really come to fruition. Before starting the level, Reaper will explain to the player the basic rules that surround the scenarios. In the most basic of terms, the player's job is to correctly identify the proper souls that need to be reaped, given the scenery and randomly selected methods shown on screen. Since this is a tutorial level, players will only be given the minimum amount of souls and methods that they would normally have per level, which in this case will be 2 souls per method. This is when players must home in their observational skills, as each person has a unique way in which they die, even those with the same modes of death. For the purpose of this video, I will not be showing the analysis and guessing process, since that does vary from player to player. However, I will be showing what happens when a soul is guessed correctly versus incorrectly. In these examples, we'll be using the death prompt head trauma for our demonstration. In this scenario, the player has guessed correctly, which has rewarded them with 1 soul. The player must now continue guessing until all souls have been successfully identified, of which they can now submit to the information stand to rank up. More on that later. Now, in the case that the player has guessed incorrectly, they will be attacked by a quote-unquote vengeful spirit enemy and trigger a battle sequence. Here, players will learn about each character's special abilities, attack/HP stats, as well as experiment with different strategies to ensure the best outcome of their playthrough. Grim Teachings battle mechanics follow a turn-based approach, so when in combat, players will be given the option to either attack the enemy or switch the active character on the field, actions of which can only be performed once per round before it's time for the enemy to strike. In the event the player chooses to attack, each character will deal a certain amount of damage based on their base stats and attack multipliers. Characters may also automatically perform a secondary action based on their unique special abilities. Players can view these stats and learn more about each character by pressing the C key on their keyboards, granting them access to the in-game battle menu. There, players will be able to obtain information on the character's weapons, statistics, and special abilities, allowing them to make more informed decisions on what to do during each round. Character ranks and weapons will also automatically buff each character's base statistics. Since only 1 character is allowed on the field per round, players may also have the option to switch their character. This does not count as a move and players will still be allowed to attack. However, they will only be allowed 1 switch per round, so they cannot turn their back on their choice once a character has been selected. If both characters end up defeated, the game will return to its first save point and players will have to complete the level again from the beginning. They do not get to keep any previously acquired souls and will have to start from scratch. If they do defeat the vengeful spirit, players will be allowed to continue the level. However, each incorrect guess will activate an encounter with a more challenging opponent than the last. Guessing up to 4 times incorrectly will prompt the Grim Reaper to show up and immediately end your game. The only way to properly advance the game once an incorrect guess was made is to defeat the enemy, in which players will end up acquiring a Tainted Soul item. These souls hold the same value as the regular ones, however, submitting too many of them to the information stand can cause serious consequences in late game. Once all trainee souls have been collected from Tartarus, the Grim Reaper will direct the players towards Brian at the information stand, where players will learn how the ranking system works. There are 5 ranks to complete before players can become a fully qualified Grim Reaper. To rank up, players must fulfill a soul quota by submitting the souls they have collected from the levels to Brian through the soul submission tab in the information menu. In that menu, players will also be able to learn more information about the game world and its mechanics, obtain side quests, and shop for new weapons in late game. These features were not implemented into the digital prototype as they do not really become important until much later. And that's where the tutorial level ends. After leaving the information stand, players are now free to explore the underworld as they wish. Players will also have the option to revisit Tartarus and practice soul collection on Busy Street. However, they will not receive any souls. To acquire real souls, players must travel to the mundane world on Charon's Ferry once they feel they are ready to do so. Other areas, such as the Manor, the Elysian Fields, and the Meadows of Asphodel, can be unlocked later in game through side quests. I hope you enjoyed my walkthrough of Grim Teachings' digital prototype. I really took a lot of inspo from games such as Undertale, Final Fantasy VII, and Observation Duty for this project, so I'm hoping to maybe create a proper game over the summer now that I have the time. All this to say, I hope you have a great day, and thank you for watching. Bye!